Okay, so Claude Code has finished working through the starter instructions guide. It's created all of these docs files here, project overview and the implementation plan. What I want to do now is simplify things. So the instructions originally included information about the entire project, and as you can see here, the to-do list maps out everything. But what I want to do is actually take a step back now and simplify it and focus on just the MVP. So that's the goal now, is to strip it back, focus on building out just the MVP, so it's a bit simpler and Claude Code can focus on a few tasks rather than building out the entire project, and then we can build features on top of that once the MVP is built. So what I'm going to do is just run a command here, touch docs, let's call it MVP implementation plan. Now what we're going to do, I've prompted Claude Code and it's helped me create this implementation plan. So what I'm going to do is just copy paste that here. So now we've got this clear implementation plan here for the MVP. We've got all of the information required for the API. As mentioned, we're going to use the official X API to avoid any potential account suspensions that may happen. We can use the free tier and just limit it to 100 posts per month, so it's about 3 per day whale alerts that we can send. We've got the core implementation schedule here. All of the other information's required is all here as well. So I've been chatting with Claude Code. Just drag this across so you can see. I showed it the MVP plan and the existing documents that Claude Code originally created. Now we want to do is simplify it. So this is the prompt we've ended up with after just a little chat session with Claude here. I need you to understand the BAMU Whale Tracker project and update the project documentation to align with our refined MVP plan. Do not start building anything yet. This session is for understanding and planning only. So I'm being very clear here that I don't actually want it to start coding yet. First, I want it to understand everything and create a really robust to-do list before I actually get it to start doing any of the work. So your task for this session: review and understand, read the uploaded MVP plan. So I'll specify that that's the document we're in currently. Understand the plugin architecture requirements, update the documentation file. So I've got Claude here to review what Claude Code initially did and just recommend a few changes. For example, replace Twitter API references with X API v2. Same with the project overview, focus on MVP goals. So we're just getting it to focus now on the MVP rather than the entire project. Create new documentation. So again, and this has been flagged here as the most important step, create a comprehensive 7-day implementation checklist based on the MVP plan. So we want it to be really focused on exactly what we need to build for the MVP. What I'll probably do after this is just prompt it again to say, would you recommend any changes or updates or improvements to what we've done, just to get it to then have that other frame of reference and a new review of what we've done. What not to do: don't write any implementation code, don't modify any directory files. Not sure that that's, well, they're source folder files, so that should be okay. Don't create character files yet. Don't implement any services, actions or providers. So focus on understanding the project deeply and creating excellent planning documentation. Implementation comes next. So this prompt is very clear that what we want it to do is understand the project and the prompts before it actually starts doing any of the work. So I can copy that. We'll go back to Claude Code now, and I can just paste that. It comes up as here, pasted text, 94 lines. That's the exact prompt that I just copied, and we're in this document, so it should be able to reference that the MVP implementation plan that we've referenced in the prompt is this file here. So I'll press enter. Again, if we go up to the top to see what we originally said, read the uploaded MVP plan document thoroughly. It should know, especially because we are currently in this document, we have that panel open. It should know that that's the one we're referencing. We can see here it's working through the prompt now. I help you understand the BAMU whale tracker project and update the documentation to align with a refined MVP plan. We can see here with this update here, it has read the MVP implementation plan, so that's good. It's obviously realised that this is what we're referencing. It's read that. It says that it's empty, maybe because I haven't saved it. Okay, so I might just jump in here because it said it was empty, I think because I hadn't saved it. Now it's trying to update the technical implementation plan. So I might just say no to this so that I can, before it updates anything, I just want to jump in and say now first reread. So I'm just going to interrupt its pattern there, and I've said first reread the MVP implementation plan file. There should now be text in that file. So I just want it to go back now that we've saved that content, and it has read that now, so that's good. 82 lines. Nope, it's read the wrong document, it looks like. I can't see that it's... Oh, now I can see the MVP implementation plan. Let me thoroughly read and understand it, then update the documentation. Okay, so it's a bit confusing the way that it's outlined here. It should have said that it read MVP implementation plan with this green dot here. It hasn't done that, but I'm assuming that based on that it has, and we can just have a look here. See if it aligns with our updates. It looks like it does. It's updated it to the XAPI v2. So I'm just going to say yes to this. And we can see here that the plan it's now created does align with that MVP plan. We mapped out a 7-day plan for it to follow, and it has done that with the updates. Okay, so Claude Code is finished with its task based on that prompt that we gave it. You can see here now the summary of understanding. It's given us a response as it's finished. I've successfully updated all the documentation to align with the MVP plan. Here's my confirmation of understanding. Key architectural decisions understood. XAPI v2. ELIZA OS plugin architecture. The free tier optimization, so it's determined 95 posts per month is the hard limit for our free tier on the XAPI. MVP score, simple production ready implementation. It's then given me an overview of the documentation it's delivered. It's updated the technical plan. It's updated the project overview, so it's focused now on the MVP goals and free tier support. It's created the to-do file. It's updated that now. It's pretty much overwritten what it initially had with a new to-do list, which we'll have a look at shortly. And it's created claude.md. This is a file that already existed, but it's again updated that and added to it based on our prompt. The project is now fully documented and ready for implementation with a clear understanding of the MVP requirements and architectural decisions. So it's understood the prompt, it's executed on everything, and now we've got a really strong foundation to start from. So if we look at the to-do file that it's created, it looks very thorough now, and it's all focused on the MVP. So as the prompt said, it said break it down into a 7-day implementation plan. That's essentially just to get it to break it down into phases. It's done that. Day 1 project setup. It's actually done morning, afternoon as 2 separate sessions each day. I probably would change that if I was going to go into it further, but I think that's fine for now. So project setup is day one. We've already done that. XAPI client is the second phase task. Whale watcher service, transaction detection. Day 3 to 4 is the alert system and rate limiting. Day 5 is the BAMU production setup. Day 6 is open source prep and documentation. And day 7 is launch and monitoring. So this aligns perfectly with our MVP plan that we created. What I'm just going to do now is just another check. Is I'm going to download the to-do file, save it as a text file, and then I'm going to upload that to Claude, the same Claude chat that helped me write the original prompt. I'm just going to ask it to review this to-do list and say, does this align with our MVP plan? Give me your feedback on what Claude Code has done. Okay, so we're back in the Claude chat here. As you can see, I've uploaded that to-do list here, and I've said I used your prompt for Claude Code, and I've attached the to-do list that it created as a result. Can you review this to-do list and confirm that it is aligned with our MVP plan? So again, I'm just doing this in the initial stages just to be thorough, because the foundation of the project is important. I want to make sure that everything we set up at the start is correct, and that we've covered all bases, and that we've really thoroughly reviewed the strategy so that we're on the right track from the beginning. So you don't necessarily have to do this step, but this is just what I like to do as another check in place, just to make sure that everything's right. And we can see from Claude's response, looking at the to-do list, it's very well aligned with our MVP plan, so that's great. It's given me feedback, what's perfect, excellent additions. So we can see here that Claude Code is actually added to the original MVP plan. It's implemented a testing strategy, so progressive testing after each component, integration tests with real scenarios, performance monitoring from the start. That's a really good addition that Claude Code has done on its own. Two-track approach, BAMU production, premium features, community template, the free tier, a clear separation maintained. So again, that's a nice addition to include, clear separations from the free tier, which would be the free API tier, and then separation from BAMU production. Real-world considerations, error handling and recovery, memory usage monitoring, and community documentation. So again, a good addition. Let's then come back with minor suggestions. So it wants us to add in a few additions to day one. Verify X API pricing tier and monthly limits. We don't really need to do that. Test rate limit headers and 429 error handling. We might need to add that. Day 4, add test edge cases. That's probably a good one to include. I'd assume that Claude Code would test edge cases, but it might be good to just define that from the start. Day 7, it's suggested adding quota tracking, set up quota monitoring alerts, document quota usage patterns for optimization. So very minor additions is what it's suggested. So I might send these over to Claude Code and just say, give me your thoughts on these suggestions. Should we add any of them in? Obviously, I'll leave out this one because I don't think... Well, let's just include it anyway, even though I don't think we need to, but let's do it anyway. So I'll copy-paste the prompt. Okay, so I've copy-pasted the suggestions from Claude. As you can see here, give me your thoughts on these potential improvements on the to-do list. So I might just say, oh, well, I've already pressed enter. So we'll see what it does here. I was going to say, don't actually implement anything yet, just give me your feedback. It might just do it anyway, and it is. These are excellent improvements to the to-do list. They add important validation steps and operational considerations that will help ensure a successful implementation. Let me update the to-do file with these enhancements. So again, it's good to, go back and forth with whatever we want to use, just to get feedback and different opinions. If you prompt something multiple times, you're going to get, a more refined answer over time the more you prompt it. So that's what the point of this is, just to really make sure that we've got everything covered. And every time you do prompt it, it might come up with something new. That's just sort of how they work. So we've got some additional items here that might be really helpful just from doing that step of prompting Claude further. Okay, so it's implemented those additions. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, as another step, this is again just being really thorough, I'm going to say to Claude Code, would you suggest any more changes? So again, I've just said here, please review all the documentation, the MVP plan and the to-do list once again, and let me know if you would suggest any other changes or possible improvements. Don't implement anything yet, just give me your thoughts. So this should act like Claude essentially and just review everything and come back with an answer of what it recommends. Again, we can see it's using the tokens here. We can see how long it's been working. Okay, and it's come back with some suggestions. So again, this is another example of, you know, multiple prompts. Once you get to a point where you think, okay, you're ready to start work, try prompting it again, because the more it reviews what it's done, the more it's going to potentially recognize points where it could improve and potentially, you know, create a better project. So the response here from Claude Code: after reviewing all the documentation, MVP plan and to-do list, here are my thoughts on potential improvements. Security and environment management. The MVP plan shows environment variables and character files, but we should add security best practices to the to-do. Create git ignore with .env and character files excluded. Definitely essential. Set up environment variable validation. Create secure credential storage documentation. So they're really good suggestions that we should have. Recovery and resilience. The MVP mentions graceful degradation, but the to-do doesn't explicitly cover recovery scenarios. So add today to implement exponential backoff for RPC failures. Add circuit breaker pattern for repeated failures. Create fallback RPC endpoint strategy. Again, good suggestions. Monitoring and observability. The MVP has great quota tracking, but we could add better observability. Testing coverage gaps. Character file management. The MVP shows character files with embedded secrets, which could be improved. Implement character file validation schema. Create character file template generator. That's a really good one. Add warning for hard-coded secrets in character files. Another really important thing we should add. Documentation improvements. Create FAQ for common XAPI setup issues. That's probably a good one to include. You could get that probably from the XAPI website and the docs there, but we may as well include them in this directory as well. Document minimum Solana balance for RPC requests. Add decision tree for free versus paid tier selection. Post-launch final testing. And then we can see it's also identified missing MVP features in the to-do list. These features are mentioned in the MVP plan but not in the to-do. Transaction direction detection. The MVP shows sent versus received. Batch transaction grouping. MVP mentions grouping related transactions. Soul scan link generation. Suggested addition. Alert actions, performance benchmarks. Community onboarding. Step-by-step video tutorial. That's a really good idea. Once we do ship this, we want a video tutorial so people know how to use it. Prepare example whale list for different use cases. Another good idea. So these are all really great ideas. So what I'm going to do here is say, please include all of these suggestions. Okay, so I've just responded here to Claude Code. I've said, please include all of these suggestions in the MVP plan, update the to-do list and any other necessary files. So these features are all included in the implementation. So now Claude will update all of these files to include these suggestions. So again, a good idea to ask it to just give you its thoughts first before it actually does anything. This way we can see what it's thinking, we can have a read through its suggestion first before we actually update any files. Then once we're happy, we can say, yep, okay, now proceed and implement all of that. So for example, maybe the response it gave, maybe we didn't like what it suggested for day 1 and day 2, so doing it this way means we can then say implement all of the suggestions for day 3 and 4 only. So that way we wouldn't get those changes that it probably would have done if it just automatically went ahead and implemented the changes. If we approach it this way and get it to just give us our thoughts first, we can decide then exactly what we implement. Okay, so it's updated the to-do list. That's what it's done here. We can see the changes are in green, so we can review that before we accept the changes here on the Claude Code extension panel. These are all really good. It's implemented everything. It's included all of those suggestions. It's a really thorough to-do list now, so there's a lot included here in this MVP. So we'll say yes to that. Now it has updated the technical implementation plan. So again, this is the overall implementation plan. It probably doesn't, actually just a high level overview of exactly what we're doing. So there's no specifics in terms of additional future features in terms of how we want to build. It's just a high level overview. So it's just built out the security considerations and the error handling, which are good additions. And what we can also do is actually copy paste this fully updated list, go back to Claude, the original Claude chat we had up earlier, and then say this is what Claude Code added. It added a whole lot of extra stuff. Give us your feedback on these additions. Are these things that we should definitely include? And it'll be interesting to see what Claude's response is. I'm assuming it will say yes, these are all very good additions. And that's kind of the power of, using a couple of different chats and prompting multiple times to really get to a refined solution. So it's now updated the Claude MD file with some other code patterns, so we'll accept that. And if we do go back to Claude and it says, yep, this is looking great, then we can clearly see that day 1 is what we can start on. We can start the actual build. So it's now updated also the project overview. So it's included the key features. It's updated that with the other things we've just added. And now it's about to update the .env.example file to include the new security considerations. So again, good checks to have, retry attempts. So we'll accept that. Now it's going to create a new security documentation file as referenced in the to-do list. So it looks like it's actually now starting to work on some of the things here that are mentioned in the to-do list. I will specify, if not already in the Claude MD file, that it should be checking off these items as they're complete. So we will also follow up with that clarification before we do start any of the work. And we can see it's done that. And what it will do now here is create a new file, security guidelines.md, once we accept this. And this is just really good security measures, so that's going to be really helpful. We can see that's now created. And now it's on to the final step. Let me create a troubleshooting guide. So again, that's a really good step. Another good addition to the docs. So again, the power of Claude Code versus the previous method of using Claude itself is the ability for it to just move on to the next task and do multiple tasks at once. So previously with Claude, you'd ask it to create a particular file or create a plan and then work one by one on building out files. Claude Code is a lot more sophisticated. It can, work into these documents, these to-do lists, and work on multiple tasks at once. So it's really powerful for building out projects. It's created the troubleshooting guide, so we'll accept that as well. And it looks like it's now finished. So we scroll up here. We can see I've successfully updated all documentation to include the suggested improvements. So it's updated the to-do list. We can see here everything it's done in the to-do list. It's enhanced the technical plan. It's updated the project overview. It's enhanced code patterns in Claude MD. It's created new documentation, the security guidelines and the troubleshooting. It's updated configuration. And it's then finished off by saying all features from the MVP plan are now fully integrated into the implementation checklist. The documentation now provides a complete production-ready implementation guide with robust error handling, security best practices, and operational excellence built in from the start. So it's taken us a few prompts and a bit of back and forth to get here, but now we've got a really clear MVP plan. Claude Code has all of that context. It's created some security and troubleshooting guides. It's updated the technical plan. It's got a really strong understanding of the project and what we want to build. And now we're at a point where we can then ask, what's the next step? Should we start building? So I went back to Claude and gave it the updated to-do list after Claude Code reviewed everything. The response was interesting, so I thought I'd include that here in this process as well. So Claude came back and said, I have mixed feelings about the changes. Here's my review. Excellent additions. Security and production readiness, real-world edge cases, operational excellence. So it's happy with that. It's then mentioned concerning over-engineering. So it's mentioned complexity creep, infrastructure overhead, and documentation bloat. I can understand why it's come back with this feedback, given that the MVP focus is to, build something quickly and sort of a bare bones working product. We can then build out all of that additional features later on. So this is interesting. Maybe you can go back to Claude Code and just say, let's defer some of these tasks to week 2, as Claude has mentioned here. As we can see, it's got a task count analysis based on the to-do list. The original to-do list had 56 tasks. The updated one has 87, so an increase of 55% in the number of tasks for the MVP, which again, it's just a lot of extra work for the MVP when we want to keep something simple and basic for the MVP. So I can understand this feedback. It's probably reasonable. I think Claude Code could probably handle the extra features anyway, but maybe it would be smart to defer some of those to week 2. So what I might do here is say, write a prompt that I can give to Claude Code with this feedback. Specify what tasks we should defer to week 2 and explain the reasoning behind this. I want it to also explain that the reason we're deferring some of these to week 2 is because they're not essential for the MVP, and we want to make it as simple as possible for this phase. So as you can see here, now Claude will write this prompt, so we can just copy paste this. So as you can see, great work on the enhanced to-do list. Your additions show excellent production thinking and attention to security reliability. However, we need to refine the scope to maintain MVP focus for our 7-day timeline. MVP philosophy reminder. So this is another really good thing to include in the prompt. And again, Claude is really good at writing prompts. So this clearly shows Claude Code that the reason for our MVP, the goal, is to build a working, secure, deployable whale tracker that demonstrates core value. All of those other nice to have features can come later. So we've specified again, keep these additions, and then we've said defer these ones to week 2. Updated task counts should be about 65. We've deferred 22. Action items, create new section at the bottom, week 2 enhancement backlog. Updated success criteria. So the week 1 MVP success criteria is a secure working whale tracker deployed, BAMU production and community template both functional, essential documentation, no API violations or security issues, and a clear foundation for week 2. So we can just copy that, go back to Claude Code, paste that prompt in, and we'll see what Claude Code says. Okay, so it's agreed, so that's really good. You're absolutely right. Let me refocus the to-do list on MVP essentials while deferring nice-to-have features to week 2. This will ensure we deliver a working system within 7 days. So again, this kind of highlights again the power of prompting multiple times. I've gone back and forth with Claude Code and Claude in the ELIZA project 4 or 5 times here. I initially gave Claude the context of the MVP being a focus of getting deploying a workable whale tracker. That was potentially missed in the initial Claude Code setup, so that would explain why Claude Code went a bit more advanced and added all these other extra features. Going back to Claude to then show what Claude Code updated the to-do list with, highlighted that fact that, hang on, the MVP focus is meant to be a bit more leaner and just enough to get us to a point where we've got a whale tracker that works. And that's where you then get to this point where you can refine stuff, take what Claude Code suggested, which is all really good suggestions, and defer some to week 2. So you can see here it's updated the to-do list. If we scroll down, we can see all these red ones have been removed. Those are the 22 tasks that should now be deferred to week 2. And if we go down the bottom, we should see here, week 2 enhancement backlog. We can see all of these tasks which Claude Code created are now deferred to the week 2 phase. We can see it's also added an MVP focus summary. So the week 1 goal, build a secure working whale tracker. Week 2 goal, enhance the MVP with additional features. So this is perfect. Now we're at a point where we're really happy with the to-do list. We know that there's a clear goal in mind for week 1 and a clear to-do list of what needs to be done. And then we've got not only a week 2 goal, but also a working to-do list for week 2. So we're in a really good place now. I think we can, after this prompt finishes, we can start work on the week 1 items. So again, Claude will just continue here. Claude Code, I should say, will continue here to work through that prompt, and it's finished now. So let's see its response. I've successfully refocused the to-do list on MVP essentials while preserving all the excellent production thinking features for week 2. So key changes made: streamlined week 1 tasks, so there's 64 total tasks for week 1. It's created the week 2 enhancement backlog. It's kept the essential MVP security. It's updated the progress metrics. And then it's just finished up by saying The updated to-do list now provides a realistic path to MVP success while maintaining a comprehensive roadmap for continuous improvement. The focus is on delivering a secure working whale tracker that demonstrates core value with a clear enhancement path based on user feedback. So I'm satisfied now that we're in a really good place with the plan, and the next step will be to ask Claude Code to start actually building. So I'll leave this video here for now, but the next video will include the build process, so stay tuned for that. Thanks.